I see this constantly in practice. People coming in, taking 25 supplements, wearing a ring, tracking glucose, then they ask, what else should I be doing? And I usually have to say, are you sleeping 7 to 9 hours? Are you moving daily?
Real longevity is built, not bought. So it's not about one supplement, one test, or one device.
Most people are optimizing layer 10, while layer 1 is crumbling. Here's the truth. If the foundation is weak, the body doesn't biohack. It compensates.
I can prescribe the most advanced treatments, but if these pillars are weak, those interventions don't stick. They're great for 2-3 months, and then everything crashes. Welcome back to the Everyday Longevity Collective. I'm Dr. Shoma Datta-Thomas, board-certified OBGYN and applied longevity physician. I'm also the VP of Medical Operations at Next Health.
Hi, and I'm Dr. John Thomas, a sports performance and clinical rehab chiropractor and an exercise physiologist with over 20 years of clinical experience.
If you've been following so far, you've probably noticed a theme that we keep coming back to over and over again. Real longevity is built, not bought. So it's not about one supplement, one test, or one device. It's something you construct slowly and intentionally by building systems that support biology and your life. Today, we're going to make that approachable. This episode introduces our 8 pillars of everyday longevity, the framework we use clinically, personally, and professionally to help people build a health span that actually lasts.
And what actually matters here is that these pillars aren't trends or hacks. They're the foundations that allow everything else, training, medicine, recovery, resilience, to work over the decades.
If you're feeling overwhelmed by information, you're not alone. Every week, we see there's a new superfood, a new supplement, a new workout trend, longevity hack, test, biohacking device, and it all feels so important. So you do try everything and then end up doing nothing consistently over time.
Yeah, I see this constantly in practice. People coming in, taking 25 supplements, wearing a ring, tracking glucose, doing red light, cold plunges, and they ask, what else should I be doing? And I usually have to say, let's step back. Are you sleeping 7 to 9 hours? Are you moving daily? Do you have basic strength capacity? Can your nervous system actually downshift? Most people are optimizing layer 10, while layer 1 is crumbling.
And that's the problem with modern health advice. Sometimes it's all tactics, but no true comprehensive strategy. You get isolated recommendations. So take this one supplement, track that one biomarker, track that one metric, but there's no framework to understand how it all actually fits together.
And here's the truth. After 20 plus years in chiropractic, sports performance, rehab, and longevity work, if the foundation is weak, the body doesn't biohack. It compensates. And usually it forces a timeout in the form of pain, injury, fatigue, burnout, or even illness. So your body is either adaptable, where it overcomes stress and you're able to recover and you're able to improve, or it's brittle. Stress piles up faster than you can repair it. So longevity is just a long-term version of that question.
So, how do you really simplify this for patients without dumbing it down too much?
Well, that's why we use these 8 pillars. It's not a checklist, but an operating system. You tell them what matters first, what matters next, and then what's just noise. And here's what's wild. The same pillars that keep an elite athlete durable are the same ones that keep a busy parent pain-free, and the same ones that keep a 70-year-old patient independent.
And when these pillars are strong, everything works better. I can prescribe the most advanced treatments. So, peptides, hormone therapy, plasmapheresis. But if these pillars are weak, those interventions don't stick. They're great for 2-3 months, and then everything crashes.
Same on my side. Same injury, same plan. One person rebounds, the other stays stuck. The difference is almost never effort. It's foundations. So let's introduce these 8 pillars, right? So let's outline the framework we've built over decades of practice. The first 4 pillars are what most people think of as health. Number 1 would be movement quality and physical capacity. Number 2 would be nutrition, which includes like fuel and foundation. The third would be strength, body composition, and your ability to load tolerance. And conditioning would be 4, your cardiorespiratory fitness.
The second four can often be where people fall apart, even when they're doing everything right physically. So, our metabolism, metabolic health and energy systems, recovery, sleep, and restoration. The cognitive pillar, our neurological and cognitive health. And lastly, connection, purpose and connection, and how it ties us all together.
These aren't independent, right? They're interdependent systems. Think of a table with 8 legs. One weak leg, then the others compensate. 3 or 4 weak legs, then the whole thing collapses. Let's hit this first pillar, movement quality and physical capacity. The core question here is, can your body move efficiently without compensation? The movement quality is the entry ticket. Before strength, before conditioning, before intensity, there needs to be control. This includes mobility where you need it, like in your hips, your ankles, your thoracic spine, stability where you need it, like in your spine and how your scapula moves, coordination and balance, and then gait efficiency, your ability to walk and maintain balance efficiently. Poor movement creates energy leaks. Those show up in pain, fatigue, and overuse injuries.
And from a longevity standpoint, this is massive. Gait, speed, balance, sit to stand ability are some of the strongest predictors we see for independent living and survival. There's research in the Journal of American Geriatrics where gait speed is actually the best predictor of survival versus many other common clinical measures. Movement quality is that ultimate biomarker revealing how your brain, your muscles, your metabolism, and your cardiovascular systems are all working together.
Here's a real example. A woman in her 60s who's active, walks daily, does yoga, comes in with chronic knee pain. When I watched her move, like squat, her knees are collapsing, her hips are stiff, her ankles are locked. We didn't do anything fancy. We do 6 weeks of hip mobility, ankle work, glute activation, and squat patterning, about 3 to 4 days a week. The knee pain is gone. She's lifting again. So the key here is consistency beats complexity.
And from a global metabolic perspective, functional movement really influences everything. Efficient movement reduces our cardiovascular workload, builds neuroplasticity. Proper weight bearing mechanics, so that gait and balance signals bone building while activating the larger muscle groups. Those therein tie to testosterone, growth hormone production, and then movement quality also directly impacts insulin sensitivity through muscle activation. It regulates cortisol by signaling safety to the nervous system.
Our actionable takeaway here is if you can't squat, can't hinge, reach, or balance without pain, fix that before adding loading or intensity. 5 minutes of daily movement really beats one perfect workout per week.
So, pillar two, our nutrition, the fuel and foundation. How does your intake support your tissue repair, recovery, and performance? Nutrition really has become one of those overcomplicated, emotionally charged pillars, and it doesn't need to be if we aim for consistency and moderation and not perfection.
Right. From my side, I can always tell when nutrition is off. People fatigue early, their recovery is slow, and their injuries linger.
I usually point out three priorities: protein sufficiency, so especially after the 40s to offset that muscle loss or sarcopenia, micronutrient support. We talk a lot about supplements, and we can test now accordingly to see what we need: magnesium, vitamin D, or omega 3s, or B vitamins, just to name a few. And then eating for our insulin management, that metabolic master switch.
And the key is flexibility, right? An 80-20 approach beats rigid perfection every time. Our actionable takeaway here is start with protein at every meal, support training with food, don't sabotage it, and consistency over restriction. Our third pillar here is strength, and that includes body composition and load tolerance. So strength is not about aesthetics, it's about capacity. So muscle protects joints, buffers stress, improves balance and reaction time. Support metabolic and hormonal health. If you don't train strength, life becomes the workout.
Clinically, sarcopenia, or loss of muscle, is one of the strongest predictors of falls, fractures, loss of independence, and mortality. Muscle is also an endocrine organ. Again, it improves our insulin sensitivity and reduces inflammatory factors.
The longevity strength benchmarks are get off the floor without hands, your ability to carry groceries without pain, and your ability to play with kids or grandkids without fear. You don't need maximal lifts, you need durable strength. An actionable takeaway would be lift 2 to 3 times a week of progressive loading. You want to squat, hinge, push, pull, carry, brace, and be able to track progress over like 2 week blocks.
Pillar four, our conditioning, cardiorespiratory fitness. So, our core question when we're evaluating this is how efficiently can your system deliver oxygen and recover? We've been hearing a lot about VO2 max, and we know now that this is really one of the strongest predictors of lifespan, even independent of weight and body composition. Landmark research in the Journal of the American Medical Association, or JAMA, that followed over 122,000 patients for decades found that higher cardiorespiratory fitness was actually associated with lower mortality at every age, and there was no upper limit on the benefit. And in fact, being in the top percentages reduced mortality significantly, 80% more at sometimes, compared to that bottom 25%. So we know lower aerobic capacity does correlate with our lower cognitive function, our metabolic dysfunction, poor stress tolerance, and higher all cause mortality.
So practically, walk briskly 30 to 60 minutes. Let's climb stairs without stopping. Recover quickly after effort. This isn't about extreme endurance, it's about baseline resilience. Our actionable takeaway: walk daily, add 1 to 2 zone 2 sessions a week, and optional would be adding like a short interval, high intensity program once a week. So something where you're really trying to max out your ability to manage oxygen while you're exercising.
Great. How long do those short intervals really last for somebody?
So usually you want to work, there's a number of different protocols that we use. Some would be a 60 seconds on, 60 seconds off recovery. And you're trying to build up to what they call by a 4x4 method, which is 4 minutes on to 4 minute recovery. And that you're really building your VO2 max and your cardiorespiratory condition.
And that's not necessarily just running, right?
No, that can be in a bunch of different forms of like short burst activities, whether it be running, hard cycling, using any of the ergs, whether it be a rower or a skier. All of those things can and give you that function.
All right, pillar 5, metabolic health. This is one I get really, really excited to talk about. The core question we're trying to answer here is how efficiently does your body create, store, and use energy? So, this is a huge system we're thinking about because we know metabolic health is the driver of aging. Most people have no idea their metabolism is broken until they're actually diagnosed with full blown diabetes or heart disease, even worse, in a heart attack or stroke. So, key components for metabolic health we always talk about, my favorite, insulin sensitivity, mitochondrial function on that cellular health level, lipid metabolism, and how you're processing fats, and inflammatory control. Chronic inflammation is that factor that we know really accelerates aging, that low level burning fire across our cells. When metabolism's impaired, we see energy drops, fatigue rises, recovery slows, and most importantly, disease risk really accelerates.
From a movement perspective, poor metabolic health reduces adaptability. And that's a key for us, right? People with insulin resistance or metabolic dysfunction, they fatigue faster during workouts, they heal slower from injuries, they tolerate stress poorly, and they struggle to build muscle even with consistent training. Our actionable takeaway here is check your glucose, your insulin, your HbA1c, and your lipids. Walk after meals, build muscle as a focus, and protect your sleep.
And that brings us to pillar 6, recovery, which is really based on sleep and restoration. So, our core question: can your system downregulate, repair, and adapt? And sleep is really, as we've discussed before, very lately, where hormones are really regulating growth hormone, testosterone, cortisol. Our inflammation is resolving, memory consolidates, tissue repair occurs, and a lot of detoxification processes are happening as well. So we know chronic sleep debt accelerates biological aging.
I know we've mentioned this before, but from a recovery standpoint, sleep is a non negotiable. If you're not sleeping, you're not adapting to training, you're not building muscle, you're accumulating inflammation, and your nervous system stays dysregulated. I'll often see people training hard, eating well, doing everything right, but they're sleeping 5 to 6 hours or getting interrupted sleep at night. So there's important research from the Journal of Strength and Conditioning showing that programmed deload weeks not only prevent overtraining, but actually improve long term strength gains compared to continuous high volume training. So the key here is strategic recovery beats relentless intensity.
And how do you program in that deload time for your patients?
So we make sure that they really focus on getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night. We incorporate things like yoga in between heavy loading days, good mobility, good foam rolling, and recovery tools like a sauna, a cold dip will also help in those recovery and deloading that stress. And again, focusing on, again, getting the quality sleep, using the same bedtime and wake time. And then we also recommend active recovery daily and deloading every fourth week if training really intensely.
So how do you track that if you're following your gains or your progressions with weight training, let's say? What does that deload look like?
So, in a proper deloading program, when you're trying to build for growth and you're trying to build for higher intensity of load, you want to make sure you're building in recovery days in between. And those recovery days could be a higher volume, lower intensity sets. Those can be also recovery days where you're working on mobility. So, that's where we want to make sure that we're not just stacking maximal loads and maximal progression every day, one after the other, and that you're giving your body the ability to repair and rebuild and manage the stress that it's taking on those high intensity days.
Pillar 7, neurological and cognitive health. And this is definitely one that's close to both of our hearts. We've both seen parents go through dementia. So let's get into this next one.
So our core question here is, can your nervous system process, adapt, and respond effectively? So the brain controls movement and movement feeds the brain. This pillar includes your reaction time, your balance, your coordination, and dual task ability. Walking while talking, for example, or being able to balance and catch. These are things and ways we challenge that system. These skills predict fall risk and independence.
And when I look at it from the longevity perspective, there's a lot of concern. This is probably one of the top three factors that patients come in wanting to discuss their dementia risk, either because of a family history or maybe they've started noticing some cognitive changes of their own, their memory, their sharpness, their clarity. This is a big change with men and women as they go through, hormonal transitions in their 40s and 50s. So we can talk about genetic testing. That's the first thing people go to, especially that ApoE4 gene. But beyond the testing, there's such a huge amount of practices and information we can stick to, and I always emphasize a few points around cognitive health. So, metabolic health is brain health. Insulin resistance, compromised cerebral blood flow, and vascular health. Those all accelerate neurodegeneration and they're foundational for cognitive longevity. We're optimizing neuroprotective hormones when we talk about hormone health too. So, our sex hormones, thyroid hormones, growth hormones, these are also protecting our brain structure while chronic cortisol exposure is damaging, especially that hippocampus. And with movement, right? Movement, I always say, is the maybe the number one tool at our everyday disposal to increase our cognitive health. So it increases BDNF, builds our neuroplasticity, creates cognitive reserve that really protects against decline.
Here's what it looks like practically. Balance training after the age of 40. So that includes single leg exercises, single leg deadlift, Bulgarian split squats, standing on one leg while brushing your teeth, maybe 2 minutes a day, and balance board or wobble board work. So if you haven't got on one of those, it's a good way to challenge you can incorporate them into regular exercises, whether you're squatting, doing lunges, but it's a way of challenging your stability and firing off more sensory patterns. Coordination challenges would be learning new movement patterns like dancing, martial arts, or new sports, and dual task training like walking while juggling, walking while doing math problems. Anywhere where you're incorporating movement and brain activity is dual task training. Hand-eye coordination drills are also good. We'll do simple drills where you're just bouncing balls off walls and you're just reacting and catching them. You can start with one and eventually add two and just be quick and reactive.
I know you've incorporated blaze pods for this as well, with even our young kids to your older clients as well.
Yeah, and honestly, it's an engaging product, and it's a great way to get people to work on the reaction time, create challenges so that they're trying to increase that speed and maybe the more taps each time. It's a very interactive way of gaming the system and getting better at your reaction time and your speed. And why this matters is because falls are the leading cause of injury related to death in adults 65 and over. So balance trading reduces that fall risk dramatically. And you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be consistent in this practice.
The other one layer of cognitive longevity is also that engagement, both intellectual and physical engagement. So the combination of the physical and cognitive challenges are really that powerful 1-2 for the brain health.
Right. And our actionable takeaway here is you want to add balance, work to your regular routine. So single leg exercises 2 to 3 times a week, balance challenges daily. So stand on one leg again while you're brushing your teeth or while you're standing at the counter doing dishes. Learn new skills regularly. So try a new instrument, a language, or a sport. It doesn't need to be perfect. Again, just consistent engagement. And stay socially engaged. Conversation and connection support brain health. So you want to track these over 2 weeks. And are you challenging your balance and coordination over that time? 10 plus days out of 14, and you're moving regularly every day.
And that really is a great tie in for pillar 8, purpose and connection. The core question here is, does your life's environment support resilience or accelerate wear? And we've talked about a number of aspects of our home where we really try to build this out to best support us and our family of all ages and generations. It's often overlooked, I think, in longevity medicine. And oftentimes I'll see very hard driving, professionals, and they're tracking all the metrics and really have everything figured out on paper. But this is the one piece that has not been yet considered, but it's truly foundational. We know how chronic stress accelerates aging at a cellular level. And so, even from the point of that cellular changes, telomere shortening, mitochondrial dysfunction, elevated inflammation, it's really working against us if we don't have this last pillar. And with purpose and connection, we see that we have improved adherence to good health behaviors, our recovery capacity, emotional resilience, and that overall longevity is really boosted.
Yeah, this pillar really sustains all the others. Without meaning or connection, your movement drops, your nutrition deteriorates, sleep suffers, and your recovery is totally impaired. Purpose sustains all other pillars.
The actionable takeaways from here are prioritizing that social connection, time with family, friends, community. Again, over maybe 2 to 4 weeks. Are you getting some meaningful interaction? And even anything from just a small outreach to more quality time spent. Is that in your life in a regular way? Finding purpose, serving others, meaningful work, meaning volunteer work or professional work. Are you engaging activities that really matter to you? And again, consistently more than intensely. And again, we have talked about this multiple times, but worth repeating, managing your stress. And the reality is, we're never going to eliminate stress, but we can modify how our body processes it. And this is where we come over. And I really see it as a performance enhancing tool is breath work, our time in nature, our therapy, certainly if needed, is strongly encouraged, and spiritual practices. And with this, even just a few minutes a day is a very powerful practice. In closing, these 8 pillars don't operate in isolation.
Right. They compound or undermine each other. Longevity isn't perfection, it's clarity plus consistency. Track it over 2 week blocks, aim for 70 to 85% compliance, and build the weakest pillars first. Longevity is built, not bought.
We'll be doing episodes to clarify and expand on each pillar here. So we hope you'll continue to listen, subscribe, and like. And again, hopefully these 8 pillars speak to you. The framework has been very helpful for us.
Thank you for joining us. We look forward to the next conversation.